It really feels like something happened in the mid-2010s because everything around us, the whole world, politics, leadership, the way the world works, seemed to change completely at exactly that time, as if we entered an alternate reality. And in this video I'm going to talk about why that is that we have that feeling and what it is exactly that has caused this deep-seated change. For me, 2016 is when the unthinkable started happening, when never events started to occur regularly. Things we could not have imagined started happening, not just as a one-off, but on a regular basis. First of all, there was Brexit. In the UK in 2016, David Cameron, the Prime Minister, called the Brexit referendum because he was pretty much certain that the yes vote would win and we would all vote in the UK to stay in the European Union. That was what the polls suggested too. It was where everybody thought we were as a country. But of course we weren't. Something fundamental had shifted. And the result that came about was a shock, not just to half the population. It was a shock to the entire political establishment, and Prime Minister David Cameron resigned from his office the very next day. He knew he couldn't lead anymore. And then we've gone through the most unimaginable political turmoil in the UK ever since. A whole string of prime ministers in just a few years, coming and going as if through a revolving door. This has never happened in British political culture before. We had a Prime Minister, Liz Truss, who was in office just over a month. That's never happened in the whole history of British democracy, of British parliamentary democracy, and of the office of Prime Minister. This has never ever happened before in hundreds and hundreds of years. And then in the US, in 2016, Donald Trump won a national election and became president. Absolutely unimaginable. It was only ever predicted before in The Simpsons, a comedy series. That's how ridiculous the notion was before that point. We seemed to enter a world with comic book heroes and villains, and the sort of normal, rational universe we lived in seemed to have disappeared. And then, of course, came January the 6th, Trump's attempt at subverting democracy, Trump's full-on cultivation of a potential coup. Again, nothing like that could even have been imagined just a few short years before. It happens in other countries, but not in the US. And then after that, after the Biden administration, then Trump got re-elected. Again, equally unimaginable. The first time round it seemed to have been some kind of a fluke. He didn't really win the popular vote, so the sort of niceties and intricacies of the Electoral College led to Trump's election. But then he got elected second time, and this time by winning the popular vote as well. So it just felt like somewhere in the mid-2010s we entered into another parallel universe. I remember saying that to people. I remember a lot of people saying the same to me. Yeah, it feels like we've just entered a completely different space and time sort of continuum. Like we slipped out of the reality we were once in and we entered something new and different. Everything feels different. And the truth is, we have entered into a new and completely different reality. It's pretty much the case. We've entered into a new universe. Now, what do I mean by that? Well, let's look at some things that changed before that happened. Let's look at some things that actually happened that changed the very way we experience our world and our reality. The first iPhone, the first smartphone, was released in 2007. Android then followed suit several years later in 2010. By about 2015, by the mid-2010s, smartphones were then mainstream and commonplace. Most people had them and were using them incessantly. That was the real launch of the attention economy, an economy in which major corporations were vying with each other to grab our attention. That was the commodity then that was at the heart of capitalism, attention. The more attention you can gain from your listeners, from your users. The word user itself is a little bit of a clue. It's only used to describe people who engage in inappropriate drug use. But users is also the term we use for people who are on social media and using smartphones incessantly. So the only commodity is the attention of the user. And so what happened is that arms race developed with app manufacturers, with places like Facebook and Instagram and TikTok, to maximize the amount of our attention that they could capture. As a result of that, our brains started to change. We have been overstimulated in a way that we are not developed to be. This hasn't been the way that humans evolved, in order to pay acute and constant attention to constantly moving images and ideas and cognitions, changing all the time. And because of that, we started to become numb. We started to require more and more stimulation just in order to be interested in something. We developed a tolerance to stimulation. And so the social media sites, the large corporations, they started to up their game in response. And more, they were delivering content that was more and more outrageous in order to grab our attention more and more.
We know for a fact that what all of these systems do, every single one, is it exploits our own natural tendencies in human beings to get and want feedback. And that feedback, chemically speaking, is the release of dopamine in your brain. And so what these feedback loops do, and they exist everywhere, in Call of Duty, in other video games, in social networking sites, they get you to react. And I think that if you get too desensitized and you need it over and over and over again, then you become actually detached from the world in which you live.
You become callous, you become crude.
And you live in front of your screen.
We have seen the impact this attention has had on us mentally and psychologically in raw numbers in the mental health world, which I inhabit on a day-to-day basis. Is of course my day job. We have seen something like a 50% rise in diagnosis of ADHD in children. In the UK, we've seen a 400% rise in the number of adults seeking and receiving diagnosis of ADHD, attention deficit hyperactivity disorder, in the UK. Massive numbers of people are now experiencing a problem with attention. And you see, all of this creates a firestorm. It creates a sort of perfect storm where the large corporations can gain our attention, can make money by extracting outrage. The more they outrage us, the more they will keep us glued to their particular app. And the more, therefore, we are going to be able to click on advertising and make money for those corporations. And that creates a perfect environment for the far right, because their stock in trade is outrage. Centrist or even progressive politics isn't usually about outrage. It can be, but actually most of the time it's about competence, it's about fairness, it's about equality. But that's not sexy enough to drive people's engagement. What drives people's engagement is rage, being angry at someone, an outgroup, and other immigrants, gay people, other countries. Stoking that outrage is sort of perfect fodder for the right. And because of that, the right has been rising all around the world, and results we could not have ever imagined, whether it's Brexit, whether it's Trump, whether it's Viktor Orban, whether it's the AfD in Germany, whether it's Front National in France. All of these forces are on the rise, and things that we could not even believe could become mainstream are now becoming mainstream. We have a president who doesn't like us talking about what was bad about slavery. All of these things are happening that we could not have ever conceived beforehand, and so that's why it feels like we're in a different universe. And that's just the sort of macro political world we're living in. Things are happening that we, as children, as young people, we could never have imagined. But on top of that, our own brains have changed. So we ourselves are flicking more and more, doing more and more stuff to try to feed that hit that we have within us, that desire for these highs. And we're all part of that now. We're all chained into this matrix. You see, our sense of self, our very sense of self, is starting to shift. We're becoming more and more dysphoric. See, as your attention span reduces, your ability to maintain a sort of steady state of satisfaction, of contentment, declines. And so because of this, we have this sort of sense of sadness, this pervasive sadness, this dysphoria that seems to start to spread and remain as a background. And we have to keep grabbing our phones to take us out of it. And additionally, as a result, we become increasingly misanthropic. We're less likely to feel good about other human beings because of what we're fed. And so we become negative about other people. This, as I say, is ripe for exploitation by unscrupulous right-wing populist politicians. And it is no longer easy or even possible to win an election by being optimistic, by being inspiring, by being bright. Just look at what happened to Kamala Harris. She was one of the most optimistic, bright, cheerful, joyful politicians that we've seen in modern times. And it was completely, in the end, misplaced with where so many people were because of how their brains are being changed to become these attention-seeking, dysphoric, misanthropic creatures that we are becoming. And I say the word we on purpose because it's happening to all of us. We can't just point to Trump voters and others. It's happening to all of us. Some more than others, right? And some are responding to it more acutely than others. But it is happening to us all. And that's why I think that we all must do some things to help us get out of this. And so I'm presenting just a few short points about what we could do to help us get out of the attention drain matrix that we seem to be a part of right now. These are just some things that I've tried myself. Still working on it, it's still a work in progress, just as much as it is for anybody else. So I can't say I've conquered this, but these are the things that I'm trying to do myself. Number one, have no phone zones in your house. Have parts of your house that you're in regularly, whether it's the kitchen, the lounge, the whole of the downstairs is what I try. That's when I tend to hang out with the kids. No phones allowed there. No phones, no devices downstairs, no phone zones. All right, we have a TV, we might occasionally watch, but no phones or anything like that. Try to impose something like that in your life, some part of your house, some part of your property that just phones aren't allowed there. Number two, the other thing that I sometimes do is, if I'm reaching out to grab my phone, first of all, I ask myself, why? Why do I need to grab my phone? And if there isn't a clear answer, like there's something I actually need to do right now, then I won't grab it. Because I'll know that that's just to try to satisfy something in me, rather than an actual specific need. So try to ask yourself just one question before you pick up the phone. Why? If I don't know specifically what I need to do right now, then I'm not going to do it. Try to get in regular doses of nature. Try to go out, again, without phones or devices, try to go out and just enjoy nature. Just go for a walk, go to parks, go to forests, be around trees. Anything in nature is the antidote to this. I recently just came back from a trip to Finland, a wonderful conference with some great like-minded brothers and sisters, if you like. We're all part of a sort of similar project called Open Dialogue going on around the world. I'll talk more about that on another occasion. A sort of revolution in mental health care that's happening. And we did that in Finland, in Lapland actually, northern Finland, which is absolutely beautiful. And in between the sort of meetings and events that we had, we were able to go out to the lakes, go out to reindeer farms, go out to husky sledges, all the things I managed to do between my time at the conference. And it was just wonderful. And the whole family really enjoyed that because we were able to do something in nature, do something that we hadn't done before, that stimulated us in a completely different way to sort of attention drain that our devices. So try to go out in nature. It makes a huge difference. Physical exercise is key. Being able to regularly, whether it's go to the gym or do exercise in your own place, if you've got any equipment or anything like that, just getting into our bodies is fundamental. Because what happens with the attention economy is it sort of bringing us out of our bodies and into our minds, and almost out of our minds and into the screen. So we're sort of constantly traveling this way, energy is going this way. We want to bring energy back into the body. And the more we're able to be present with our bodies, the more our worrying mind gets sort of dethroned, if you like. It's not in charge of us so much anymore. We can be more present with the bulk of who we are, which is our bodies. So anything that brings us into our bodies is really helpful, and that exercise is a good way to do it. Another key way to really come into our bodies is meditation. I'm a mindfulness meditation teacher. I teach people this all the time. I teach mental health professionals actually, and how you can get better at your job by meditating. So meditating on a regular basis really helps us fundamentally come into our bodies. Mindfulness meditation, for example, is about really bringing the attention to the breath and really being present with the breathing. And that really helps us. A mundane experience like that really helps us to bring our attention, our focus and our concentration back. And finally, there are things we can do on a macro level outside our own individual lives. And that is to really work towards a change in the way that our whole system works. I believe that fundamentally we're in this place now because democracy has become corrupted. Democracy became corrupted, which then corrupted us, which then helped us to participate in deepening corruption of democracy. So democracy became corrupted. That led to a corruption of us through the way the economy changed, which has led to a further deterioration in our democracy. And now we need to act on this at all levels, starting with working on ourselves, as in the ways I've described, but also working on our democracy, creating a democracy that's more participatory, a democracy where we're all involved and not just outsourcing decisions to a few people who are always going to be corruptible. If it's one person, they're completely corruptible. If it's a few hundred people, they are also corruptible. We've seen this with the way our politics has worked. And so we all need to participate in our democracy, whether we enjoy it or like it or not. It's the only way we're going to turn this around. And I've actually written a book about that. It's a fiction book, but there's a lot of messages in there, which I'll talk about at the end. I hope you can buy that. That really paints a picture about how we could change things on a macro and political level too. One way or the other, we have to get out of the cycle, because it really is true that we actually shifted to a different alternate reality about 10 years ago. And we all need to work on an individual levels, in ourselves and in our families, but also on a societal level to change us, get us back to greater stability, greater happiness, and more wholeness too. I hope you like my video. As a psychiatrist who loves politics and economics and philosophy, I love to make videos like this, and you can really help promote this video to other people and get it on your feed more by liking and commenting and subscribing to the video as well. We have a wonderful community of people here who comment and support each other through this very traumatic period of world history that we're going through right now. I also hope you consider becoming a subscriber to the channel and also subscribing to my e-newsletter. There's a link in the description, and that way we can stay in touch outside the channel, so you can keep abreast of all of the content that I'm making on an ongoing basis. The latest of which actually is my latest book called We the People. Very, very proud of this book. It's actually a novel, a fiction book written by myself and the famous award-winning author T.J. McGregor. Together we wrote a book about what the future might look like. Bit of a dystopian novel, but what might happen if autocracy goes to its next stage, AI predicting the potential end of humanity. I actually made a video about that, it really happened. And how things might pan out in this dystopian world, and actually how a band of committed, passionate, progressive people managed to change the trajectory, and not in the way that you think. It's not just by running a candidate and opposing the autocrat, but actually by deepening the democracy that we have and engaging in a real participatory form of democracy that sort of shifts the needle and gets us back to basics and helps us sort of rebuild our democracy. And that's within the context of a really compelling, gripping story, a bunch of fascinating characters, and I assure you, you will not be able to sort of stop turning the page until you get to the end of the book. That's what all the reviewers have said so far. Lots of people love it, and I hope you can get it. You can get it on Amazon, any of the global Amazon bookstores out there. Please do order your copy of We the People. Just put We the People Russell Razak and you'll be able to find it inside Amazon as well. Also, I hope you consider becoming a member of the channel. You can subscribe to a couple of different membership levels. All members of the channel also get some free ebooks that I produce once a month. You can buy those ebooks too from russellsbooks.com. That's russellsbooks.com, and every month I produce a new ebook on that channel, which is really about, these are the non-fiction books I produce with my team, which is really about how to learn about the world around us and the psychologies of the people who govern us, but also how to learn about ourselves, deepen our own self-awareness in a way that helps us navigate this difficult world we're in right now. So those are sort of self-help books that are produced every month, and if you're a member of the channel, you get a sort of 100% discount on those books every month. Otherwise, you can go to russellsbooks.com, as I say, and buy them anytime you like. I really hope you can become a part of this community, as I say. So this sort of supportive community, validating and helping each other, is really worth being a part of, and I hope you can join us as we all join forces to create a better tomorrow together. Thank you.